Hello, everybody. This is John Paval with the Access Arts Live weekly roundup of big stage productions, orchestral works, chorales, and opera. Yes, we have an opera coming up on this Sunday. And so I'm looking forward to telling you all about all of this live stream action in the next 20 to 30 minutes as per usual. We've got orchestras from Bergen to Budapest to Frankfurt to Lisbon to Berlin and Cologne, and opera from Italy. Where else? Top soloist orchestras, conductors, and chorales. So let's get to this week's information for you. I just have to open the right file because I get so excited I don't have the right file open. I need my script. I actually have something that vaguely resembles a script. It's more like chicken scribbles, but it's something, and it exists, and so I will bring it to you. So let's get on with it, starting with the first of this week's live streams, which will be coming out of Bergen, way up north. Thursday, February 19th, the Bergen Philharmonic live streams Axel Kober leading the orchestra in a program of works by Britten, Strauss, and Zemlinsky's The Mermaid. Axel Kober has been the music director of the Deutsche Oper am Rhein since 2009. So that's basically, that tells you the man's career. He's an opera man. They'll start out doing Benjamin Britten's 4C interludes from Peter Grimes. Then they do an oboe concerto by Richard Strauss with Boris Fatulayev, who's the principal oboist of the Bergen Phil and also teaches at the Grieg Academy. And then they move on to the highlight of the evening, Alexander Zemlinsky's Die Seejungfrau, the Mermaid. And like the modern tale of the Little Mermaid, it's based on the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale about a mermaid who falls in love with a human prince who could never love her back. So, oh, what fun fairy tales can be. The birth of this story was real life heartbreak for Zemlinsky and real soap opera kind of classical music history. Zemlinsky had a very passionate love affair with another composer, Alma Werfel. This is back at the beginning of the 20th century, 1901 thereabouts. But then Alma broke off that passionate relationship to marry Gustav Mahler. And Zemlinsky was devastated. And not only by her leaving him, but by her leaving him for a composer of higher standing, as if he wasn't good enough as an artist. But he channeled all this into this lovely piece called Die Seejungfrau, the Mermaid. See for sea and Jungfrau for maid. And that's what you have on Thursday, starting out the evening at 7:25 in the evening, European time, 1:25 p.m. on the East Coast, lunchtime, and 10:25, a late breakfast out in LA and Seattle and places like that. That's first up. That same evening, though, a little later in the evening, you can get a taste of some very different music. Coming from Budapest. And we're very happy that we finally seem to have figured out how to keep track of these live streams by Müpa and its Danubia Orchestra. Thursday, February 19th at 7:30 in the evening European time, the Danubia Orchestra of Müpa celebrates the 100th birthday of György Kurtág with a birthday concert led by the artist in residence Vikingur Ólafsson. The conductor of all this is another operatic conductor, Marcus Stens. He conducted the world premiere of Kurtág's opera Fin de Partie, Endgame, at La Scala in Milan years ago, and then the Hungarian premiere of the work at Müpa. He's been the principal conductor for a number of orchestras, Netherlands Radio Phil, principal guest conductor of the Baltimore Symphony, conductor in residence for some years at the Seoul Philharmonic. Right now, he's more freelancing. He was also general music director of the city of Cologne for 11 years, and the Gürzenich Kapellmeister there, during which time he conducted Mozart's Don Giovanni and Wagner's Ring Cycle and more Wagner, Lohengrin, Tannhäuser, and Die Meistersinger von Nuremberg. So real dramatic, inclined kind of conductor. Vikingur Ólafsson, he's the artist of the season at Müpa. He's Icelandic. He's a pianist. He is one of his big claims to fame. He recorded the Goldberg Variations and won a Grammy Award for it in 2025, just last year. And he's had, you see in the photograph there, he has had a close working relationship with Kurtág. In fact, they worked together on an album that came out in 2022 called From Afar, and several pieces from that album will be performed in this concert, both on a concert piano and an upright piano, which is as was done on the album. Also participating is clarinetist Csaba Klinian, on the viola Matthew Zooks, and on the guitar Pablo Marquez. They'll start out with a couple of piano pieces from Ólafsson's album From Afar, which are piano pieces by Bach arranged by György Kurtág. Then they'll do Haydn String Quartet in G major, Opus 76, number 1, the Adagio from that, as arranged for piano by György Kurtág. Then they'll do a couple more pieces by Kurtág, a quasi una fantasia. Then they'll take a break. They come back and do the Grabstein for Stefan, and one of his more bombastic works, the Stelle, Opus 33, and then they'll segue out again with more piano pieces from that album, pieces by Bach as arranged by György Kurtág. If you're a fan of György Kurtág, or if you're interested in discovering him, since you don't know him, he's one of the top, he's a legend in his own time. This guy is legendary as a contemporary composer. He's one to check out. And I know we have followers on Access Arts Live who are not, they don't have book on everything going on in the classical world. And so this is your chance to discover one of the top conductors of the last century. Okay. We then move on to that's quite a buildup, quite a sales job, I would say. We move on to Friday and the Frankfurt Radio Symphony. Friday, February 20th, the Frankfurt Radio Symphony welcomes Alice Wallerstein, the top cellist, playing Unsuk Chin's cello concerto with the conductor Alain Altinoglu, and he will also be conducting Johannes Brahms and some Mendelssohn, which I'll tell you about in a moment. This is at 8 o'clock in the evening here in Europe, 2 o'clock on the East Coast. And I think our notes had that wrong, and 11 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. Alain Altinoglu, he's the head guy at Frankfurt, has been for about 5 years now, also directs the musical director at La Monnaie in Brussels, which is a big opera house, for the last 10 years. He's at the height of his career, you could say. He's about 50 years old, and that's a peak time for a conductor, if you ask me. They'll start out doing Brahms's 4 songs for women's choir with the accompaniment of 2 horns and a harp, and it'll be the women's voices of the MDR Radio Choir. MDR means the middle of Deutschland, I believe. And then they'll move on to doing the Unsuk Chin cello concerto. He's a Korean composer whom Altinoglu likes. Back in November, There was a live stream with the Frankfurt radio doing Unsuk Chin's Ala Raf, the Rite of the Heartbeat, with Altinoglu on the podium. Last April, the Sao Paulo Orchestra did a piece by Unsuk Chin called Operascope. The Bergen Phil, about a year ago, live streamed doing another piece by him called Subito con Forza. And with this particular piece by Unsuk Chin, Wallerstein or Stein and Altinoglu have teamed up because it is being performed this year both with the Cleveland Orchestra, with that pair present, and here with the Frankfurt Radio Symphony. As for Wallerstein, well, she was in Detroit last Saturday, which we told you about, which was live streamed. She was doing Joan Towers' New Day cello concerto, which Tower composed for her. You could also have heard her last in September with the Berlin Phil playing Prokofiev's Sinfonia Concertante for cello and orchestra. And her dance card is full this year. She'll be doing Elgar's cello concerto in Atlanta, Dvorak's cello concerto with the LA Phil, Lutoslavsky's cello concerto with the Spanish National Orchestra, Britten's cello concerto with Alan Gilbert conducting both in Hamburg and at the Staatskapelle in Berlin. So she's just really busy. And she also has this terrific this solo cello project called Fragments, which weaves together 36 movements of Bach's solo cello suites with 27 newly commissioned works to be used in this thing. And it's a multi-sensory production with lighting and scenic elements. And she started doing it, shopping it around in 2023. By that, I mean performing it. And if you ever get a chance, it sounds like it's really wild. Anyway, when they finish that, which I'm sure is going to be special, they'll then do Mendelssohn's Midsummer Night's Dream, excerpts from that. So quite an evening in Frankfurt on Friday night, or Friday afternoon or morning if you're in the US. We then move on to another concert, which I think is happening on Friday. If I'm not mistaken, the Gulbenkian Orchestra is going to be live streaming this Friday, although I don't have an official announcement of it. Friday, February 20th, the Gulbenkian Symphony Orchestra brings in Daniel Lozakovich to play a Tchaikovsky violin concerto, and then continues with some Rachmaninoff, the Bells, Opus 35. That'll be at 8 o'clock in the evening European time, 2 o'clock on the East Coast in the US, 11 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. This is a sold-out concert. The photo that I have put up there for you with Hanna Lintu and Daniel Lozakovich, it's the same one I used last week because they were both with the Helsinki Phil last Saturday, and they put on Tchaikovsky's violin concerto. Now, why would they do that? Well, Daniel Lozakovich, he's a Swedish classical violinist, signed by Deutsche Grammophon like a decade ago when he was only 15 years old. He's already got 5 albums out, and on one of them, his second album, he recorded Tchaikovsky's violin concerto. So Mark Pullinger from Gramophone comes along and in 2023, and he reviews all of the recordings of this violin concerto for the last 70 years. And he says this one by this young guy, Daniel Lozakovich, is the best of all the recordings. I'm not all that big on recordings. I'm big on live performances, but the fact that this is what one of the critics has come up with means that Daniel Lozakovich knows how to play this Tchaikovsky violin concerto. So then they will in the second half of the concert be doing the Bells, which is this choral symphonic piece by Rachmaninoff, inspired by Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Bells. And I'm sorry I haven't prepared to read the poem for you, but perhaps before the week is out, I'll do a special edition to talk about just that live stream and give you a little reading of Edgar Allan Poe's The Bells. I don't know yet, but we'll see. Give you some motivation to tune in again sometime this week. Next up, we move on to Saturday. And I think we have 2 live streams to tell you about on Saturday. And here's the first of them, one of my favorite conductors and some of my favorite pianists. Saturday, February 21st, the Berlin Philharmonic will be hosting top conductor Michael Sanderling from the Luzern Philharmonic and the Jussen Brothers piano duo. That'll be at 7 in the evening, European time, 1 o'clock on the East Coast, 10 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. They don't give it away for free, the Berlin Phil. They do charge you €9.90, but very often they're running a 1 month free subscription just to encourage you to try it out. So you may be able to get to see that concert free of charge. I do not know. They'll start out doing Liszt, a piece by Liszt, the first Mephisto Waltz, also known as Zwei Episoden aus Lenau's Faust, der Tanz in der Dorfschenke. Then they will do the Mozart Concerto for 2 pianos and orchestra in E-flat major, Kerschel 365, 316A, composed in 1779. This is a debut for Lucas and Arthur Jensen with the Berlin Phil, which is kind of surprising because they play with just around with all the top orchestras, and they're a terrific duo. They're brothers. I mean, they're a lot of fun. And Mozart composed this piece to play with his sister Nannerl, who also had abilities as a musician and as a composer, but being a woman in the 18th century, well, good luck. In the 19th century, they started to make a little bit of progress, and in the 20th century, a little more, but long haul for women as composers. They've been recording exclusively with Deutsche Grammophon for 15 years now, because Deutsche Grammophon goes out and gets them young and signs them exclusively. One conductor who conducted them recently, Michael Sanderling, said that directing them in concert is like driving a pair of BMWs. So that'll be fun. Then they will finish up with another really interesting piece, Brahms's Piano Quartet Number 1 in G minor, Opus 25, which was originally a piano quartet, but Schoenberg picked it up in 1937 and turned it into an orchestral piece. As for Michael Sanderling, he had a debut with the Berlin Phil 7 years ago in 2019. I don't know why they haven't brought him back sooner, but I'm happy they're bringing him back now. He's a man who started out as a cellist and then turned to conducting and teaching. He was the chief conductor at the Dresden Philharmonic from 2011 to 2019. He's been at the Luzern Orchestra since 2021. He's toured around the world and all of that. If you follow Access Arts Live, you would have seen him directing the Deutsche Radio Philharmonic in Saarbrücken, doing Mahler's 7th last June 1st. You would have seen him just about a month ago, January 9th, with the Hanover Radio Philharmonic, doing works by Enke, Elgar, and Sibelius. Follow and or subscribe to Access Arts Live, and you see everybody, and you see people that if you're waiting for them to come to your time, you're going to have to wait a long time, folks. But if you follow Access Arts Live, you see everybody, including the wave of top women conductors all over the world, all of whom I've seen in the last year and a half since I started running this joint. And then what do we have next? Next, we have another orchestral and symphonic work. I may have to do a separate live stream edition just on that subject to circulate to our followers who love choral music. Stanislav Kochanovsky leads the NDR Radio Philharmonic, that's the Hanover Radio Phil, in the beginning of the Schumann Tchaikovsky Festival there, Saturday, February 21st at 8 in the evening European time. That'll be at 2 o'clock in New York and 11 in the morning in Los Angeles. They have 400. This NDR Radio Phil has 419,000 subscribers, which leads me to wonder, when they do a live stream, how come they don't have at least 1% of that number watching the live stream? How come they don't have 4,000 people watching their live streams? I asked that question about all these YouTube subscribers. I think there's negative marketing going on to suppress which implicitly suppresses live stream viewership. But we'll talk about that another time. Anyway, Tchaikovsky is fairly new to the Hanover Radio Phil since last year when he was appointed. He originally came out of the St. Petersburg Conservatory. So he's been around for a while. He's specialized a lot in opera conducting, and he has more than 30 operas in his repertoire, and has been a frequent guest at the Verbier Festival doing concert versions of things like Eugene Onegin, Rigoletto, Die Zauberflöte, and Hansel and Gretel. This is just in the last decade or so. Anyway, on this piece, you've got Stanislav Kochanovsky as the conductor. You've got Anna Goryachova, the mezzo-soprano, as a soloist, Sergei Radchenko, a tenor, as a soloist, and the Capella St. Crucis of Hanover as the choral group. They'll start out doing Schumann's Overture to Friedrich Schiller's The Bride of Messina, Opus 100, then Schumann's Symphony No. 3 in E-flat major, Opus 97, known as the Rhenish Symphony, for those who keep track of names. Then after the break, they come back and do Tchaikovsky's The Snowflake and his incidental music to Alexander Ostrovsky's fairy tale drama, Opus 12, with the excerpts compiled and selected by Stanislav Kochanovsky himself. A lovely choral evening, another choral evening this week. And we move on to the two more live streams we have to tell you about this week, which are both on Sunday. One of them is very high culture and one of them is very popular. And I'm not going to tell you much about the high culture because I have to do a separate live stream on that. But I'll tell you a little bit. Sunday, February 22nd, Opera Streaming will be live streaming a new production of Giacomo Rossini's The Italian in Algeria, produced by the Teatro Municipale Romolo Valli and Reggio Emilia in Italy, with English and Italian subtitles. This is an opera in 2 acts. The cast includes Giorgio Cauduro, Gloria Tronell, Barbara Scora, Giuseppe De Luca, Rusil Gattin, Laura Varecchia, and Marco Filippo Romano. The conductor is Alessandro Cadario, and it's staged by Fabio Cherstich. I cannot tell you more about an opera. There's no way to do justice to it in this limited time frame. We will put out before Sunday a separate live stream in which I talk to you about the background of the 4 principal singers and the conductor and the director, and you can see that it's you can see a little bit of the colorful staging and costumes that they're engaging in for this production in that photograph there. And then finally, we have one last concert for you on Sunday. Sunday, February 22nd, for a good time, called the WDR Radio Orchestra, which you might also call the Cologne Pops on this occasion, playing popular favorites by Elgar, Brahms, Prokofiev, Offenbach, Strauss, Puccini, Shostakovich, Vivaldi, and more. They're just playing everybody, but they're playing the tunes that people really like. The conductor is Paul Weigold, and it's a fun concert. We will give you an extra link to the program itself, which will give you the details of everything they're going to be playing. I think there's like 15 or 16 different pieces that they're going to be playing. Folks, that is what we have for you this week in terms of orchestral and choral and operatic works. It's a great lineup, if you ask me. I hope that someone more or any of these uplifts you, inspires you, or just shows you a heck of a good time. At the very least, the last one, that Cologne Pops kind of thing, will probably be a lot of fun. But to me, it's a highly interesting selection all week long that you have a chance to enjoy, with a lot of variety between with top soloists playing very interesting pieces, and with also choral music being added in, and soloist, and then an opera to cap the whole thing off. So I will remind you before I leave you, if you're watching this on Facebook, please like the video wherever you watch this, though. If you like this kind of programming, do yourself a favor. Follow and/or subscribe to Access Arts Live. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, and/or LinkedIn. Although the best places to subscribe are on Facebook and YouTube, absolutely free of charge. And we'll make sure you get live links to thousands and thousands of hours of orchestras, chamber music, opera, ballet, piano competitions, organ festivals, all of it. So with that, I'll say ciao for now, and enjoy this week's live streams.